Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to our Open Up show. Today we have a special guest. Before I bring him, I want to go through a couple of things about our organization. Actually, Voiceomen 360 is a non-profit organization. It started back in August 2020, and it is in London, Ontario. Our focus is the well-being of our boys and men, primarily whatever the problems or the issues that our men and boys are facing. We want to bring some kind of awareness throughout our platform, and also how we can help them, support them. These are two major focus, and at the same time, we are working with the International Men's Day. International Men's Day has been serving for over 25 years around probably more than 95 countries around the world. Also, IMD follows six pillars. We are following the same footstep. And why open up? The reason is that we want to create a platform to give an opportunity to individuals, especially men, of course, but at the same time, this is not limited to anybody, any gender, or any nationality, or any ethnic groups. We want to give them opportunity to share their life journey, and then open up. They can talk about especially men's issues. So this is the platform, and then this is the show that we were focusing on a weekly basis on Sundays, especially on the evening, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Wherever you are listening or watching this episode, thank you for joining. Today, we have a special guest today. His name is Jeeva Sam, retired pastor, founder of Spirit led consultants, author of the Unbreakable Marriage. That's what we are going to bring him and then also meet him today. Um, Welcome, Jeeva.
Well, great to be with you here, Sivam. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you for joining. And then, of course, we have a lot to talk about it. But I want to start. I want to take you back, probably in your early 5 or 10, 15 years old. Just go back and then let us know, like, how or what was the inspiration or influence that led you to the your current position, though, please.
Okay, yeah. So I was born and brought up in India, in Tamil Nadu, Kanyakumari area, a city called Nagarkoil, and so my father was actually a pastor, and so was my grandfather, and so really, I'm a third generation pastor, and so really the most influential people in my life were really my father, and to a lesser degree my grandfather, because I didn't really get to know him a whole lot. He passed away when I was about I think it was like 10 years old, 10 or 12 years old. But he did live with us for a while in his sunset years, and so there was some interaction with him. But like a lot of boys, you pretty well grow up with your father as your hero, and like when I grow up, I want to be just like my dad. So that's how it kind of got started. Although I have to admit that at a certain stage later in life, I had to make a very conscious choice about what to pursue. I had actually done very well in SSLC and PUC and got offers for medical school and IIT and so on. But at that point, I had come to the conclusion that this is my calling, and so I need to stick to my calling. And then our family actually moved to Canada, when I was 18 years old. So really, Canada has been a home for the past 47 years or so. But in those early days, I think a lot of the people that were very influential in my life were actually people that I got connected with through the church. So on top of my father being that ever-present hero all the time, there were a lot of visiting pastors or leaders who I just like looked up to them because they were larger than life figures in those days. And what really stood out for me is the way that they were able to influence others in a positive way. In this case, it was through the Christian faith. But I just began to realize that there's a call to leadership, and one day there's a very good possibility that as I pursue this call, that I can be in a position where I can also provide leadership to others. So those are some of my childhood influences. Although I still have to say, if I had to pick one, it definitely has to be my dad.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can see the influence it started up. Of course, it can be for individuals for different situation or from different backgrounds. So, but for yourself, it is it started from your father. So talking about father and then the platform that we are here, especially focusing on men's. Let's take it one step. Talk about father's role, the journey or the relationship between you and your father. Can you share some of the memories actually when you were growing, and then when you become you are a father, and then now you are a
Yeah.
grandchild. You had a grandchild, so things like that. So what did you learn? What did you, please?
Yeah, so my father was not just the pastor of a church. He had a very responsible position within the denomination that he was a pastor. He was let's just use a supervising analogy. He was like a supervisor, general overseer of many other churches. So he was extremely busy, and so when he left the house in the morning, or even sometimes he would work from the house, there were always people that dropped by to see him, to seek his counsel, and he had meetings to attend and so on. So my dad put some things in place that I think like I still have like very very fond memories. One of them was that he always took time off in the summertime, the same times that we were away from or off from school, which in India in those days anyway used to be April, May, and then June everything started again. And so I still remember in those holiday months, at least for part of it, we always went somewhere other than where we were living at the time. And so some of my memories include going to what today we might call like a seaside resort. It wasn't really a fancy resort the way we imagine it, but it was by the ocean because we lived about I'm thinking it's about 12 miles, 18 kilometers from the ocean. So there was something of like a retreat center type of thing that the church had, and so we would just go and stay there, for a week, and every day, my dad and I, and along with the other kids, we would just go and just spend time, in the ocean. My dad was a really good swimmer. I never learned how to swim, but we would just go wade in the water and then go all the way every evening to watch the sunset over the ocean. So those are some really good memories. And then other summers, we went on trips. I remember taking the train, to see some family in Madras, in Bangalore, and so on. So that was one of the ways in which he nurtured that family closeness, even though during a typical year, he would be extremely busy. The other thing my dad did that I still remember very fondly is how he always made sure that if there was something special going on in my life, that he would find a way to be there. And one of the things that I started doing, I think I was maybe in about grade 5 around there, is I learned to play the organ. It was like a pump organ, not the fancy electric organs. And so part of learning how to play the organ was doing recitals, by my music teacher, or opportunities to play at particular events. Again, because of my background, they were all church-related events. And I still remember one event really really stands out for me because when the event started, my dad was not there. and which was like extremely rare. And I kind of scanned everywhere, looked for him. I couldn't find it, and so I'm like, that's really odd. I knew he was out of town, but he didn't make it back in time. And but my part in the rehearsal was actually a little bit later on in the program. And when I sat down at that organ and just looked up, I saw him standing at the door. He had. And then later on, I found out that some due to public transportation issues, he had to take a few different buses and so on. But he made it there, in the nick of time, and that's like an endearing memory for me. And that's something that I've tried. Slowly, my wife and I have tried to do with our children, because we can get so busy with our lives that we can sometimes allow our other priorities, whether it's with career or business, to override our family time. And yet, when you look back, like here I am, like 65 years old, and that memory of what happened, I'm going to say well over 50 years ago, still stands out for me whenever I think of my dad and I.
It's true. You know what? I was thinking. It's the second generation or the next generation. It's kind of like very unlucky because they lost a lot of things whenever we had. Of course, I'm a little bit younger, but at the same time, like I can still remember. But on the other hand, I lost my father when I was 1.5 years old. But the fatherhood or some of the other things that my uncles and other people they made a big role in my life. So I can think I could connect those ones that you're talking about. So it's very unlucky for this generation though, because they don't have any kind of those memories. So it's a very mechanical life, so they don't. It's very sad. It's very sad to see.
Yeah.
um, let's talk about your book. The book, the Unbreakable Marriage. How did you come up with this the title though? First, that's what I want to ask
Okay. So the book actually came out of a mentorship that Slojan and I started to do with married couples who are at the point of giving up on their marriage. And so like, we didn't actually have a name for a mentorship. We just called it marriage mentorship, and kind of branded ourselves as marriage mentors, because nobody was calling themselves marriage mentors. And even today, you have marriage coaches, you have marriage counselors, you have marriage therapists, but you hardly have anybody that will say that they are marriage mentors. And so we were pretty well doing this like one-on-one with couples, or couple with couple, and then got to a point where like we were relying on word of mouth referrals. And it's like, what, we need to get the word out to a larger audience. And so we actually hired a coach, and our coach said to us, you guys, you need to write a book, because we had an impeccable track record that any couple that followed everything that we taught them and applied everything diligently and kept accountable to us always got the breakthrough. It got so to the point where we were actually able to offer a money back guarantee. If somebody followed our system and did everything and didn't get the results, we would give them their money back. That's how confident we were. So he said, you just can't keep it, in those small confined settings. You need to actually let everybody know about it. So we started, writing the book. It just didn't have a working. I think I had a working title, something like, you can do it, or something like. It wasn't very appealing. And then we I belong to a couple of masterminds and forums and so on, where people keep each other sharp. And so I'm just letting everybody know, hey, we got this book coming out, and what is a good title. And so people are throwing out all sorts of suggestions. And I was working with one particular man who's who I look up to as an online mentor in some of the businesses that I'm involved in and so on. And he also was known for helping people like me not just get books published, but more on the marketing side of things. And so one day, he and I are on a call. Actually, Suraj and I, along with him, were on a call. And so he said, so what did you guys come up for your book title? And so we said, well, we got quite a few, but we're kind of leaning towards something with the word unbreakable in it. And so he flipped over a piece of paper that he had, and on that he had written "Unbreakable Marriage." And so it's like God gave him that title. And then 2 days later he said, "Hey, I had a dream about, and I have a picture of what I believe represents what you're trying to do." And so I don't have the picture handy to show you, but if you look up our book, you will see this picture on the front cover, and that is a hammer that is hitting an egg, but the hammer head is smashed and the egg remains intact. And so, in other words, you can have all sorts of blows that a marriage takes, but the marriage can still remain unbroken, even though the marriage is really more fragile than the blows that hit it. And so our subtitle is how to stand in unity and withstand adversity. And so that's kind of how the whole thing came about, Sivam. It was partly our brainstorming, but ultimately the confirmation came from a very trusted friend and mentor.
No, I see the I just seen that link on Amazon, and then I see the cover page. It's really you know it makes sense, and at the same time that it's a very meaningful image, though. It's and also on other hand, when we talk about marriage, and nowadays is a lot of things going on, especially in the second generation. But at the same time, it is depends on the individuals whether they want to break it or whether they want to keep it. That's what I want to take it to the next. The question is that the relationship failure or lack of communication, whatever the thing is, which way we want to switch it. But um, talking about the zero male suicide, the theme for this year, International Men's Day. I want to ask you something here, very important. That when we talk about family dynamics and things like that, the relationship failure. Where do you see, and then from your experience working with the couples and things like that, where you see the root of the cause, the communication, or doesn't matter the male or female, husband or wife, but where is it starting, and then how we can, or how it impact on male suicide.
Yeah, well, let's just put it very simply. Suicides happen when there is like a real deep sense of hopelessness. So when you don't have hope, when you don't have any sense that you can get out of a situation, that's when ending it all seems like the better option, and that's when you get into a dark space, and the darkness is so overwhelming. But if you can't see the light, then you don't want to stay in the dark, and you think it's better that that you just kind of slip away into the darkness. It's really funny you should ask me this question in a way, because I just had somebody send me a message yesterday. He's not a married guy, he's a single guy who was in that space, and so one of the things in terms of marriage, often leading people to that kind of despair, there's a lot of factors that we need to consider, but one of the main things is that the way that a marriage failure impacts a man and a woman are very, very different. And again, we're talking in the Canadian context. And you, Sivam, you and many other men, who are connected with you, know this. And I don't think I'm saying anything pejorative or unfounded when I say that the law, generally speaking, does not favor the men, does not favor the husband, and again, I don't want to argue the merits of it, or lack thereof, but that's just the fact of life. And so when all of a sudden, especially when somebody gets hit, with the divorce, meaning, all of a sudden, like your wife comes and says, "Hey, I cannot live with you anymore," and there may be valid reasons, and there always are, but sometimes the way the news is conveyed to you can actually be like create like shock. We just had that happen to somebody close to our family, where one day wife left a note saying, "I'm out of here. you'll hear from my lawyer next. And so these kind of things are devastating, especially if you, and even if you could kind of see it coming, you could see that your marriage was not really, thriving and flourishing, and you could see those, signs of cracks appearing, in the foundation of your marriage. When it finally hits, all of a sudden, like you're hit emotionally, it's a tough blow to take. And then you all of a sudden, when you're caught up in divorce proceedings, and again, I've actually, been mentoring, men going through the process from time to time. That's not our specialty, but sometimes, for all sorts of reasons, I end up doing it. And that's how I'm more aware of this reality, where, again, I have many good friends who are lawyers and good lawyers, but the legal profession often pits husbands and wives in adversarial mode. And when that happens, then things can get very, very nasty. It's often, like, to me, for men, it's a huge blow to your ego. And when I say ego, I'm not using it in a like a pejorative way, like somebody who's full of himself. It is, maybe another word might be your self-esteem. Especially, and in some ways, for men, often our self-esteem is tied to our work and our business. But being married, having a stable marriage, having, and if you have children, having children who are, well behaved and disciplined properly and so on, like, that's a badge of honor that we wear, as men, as husbands, as fathers. And so when all of a sudden, that part of our lives, that way that we identify ourselves, is taken away. And especially, if you're in certain positions of responsibility, where, you're looked up to as a leader, not just in your world, but also in life, because of your marriage, because of your children, and so on. A divorce can have a devastating impact. You'll definitely feel like a failure. And then all of a sudden, like I remember one particular man, especially, who's counting up the cost of what, not just the divorce, the cost of the divorce itself was going to be, like pretty significant, because of they just could not agree on mediation and so on. But what happens after the divorce? What do you keep on paying? Not just, like the alimony, but also child support, and, all the other stuff that goes along with it. And like, it was very easy for him to slip into depression, because he knew, and he was self-employed, so he's going to pay for all of this with after-tax dollars, which meant that virtually everything that he earned, would actually, be taken away from him, and he would have to, like, scale down his living quarters and cut down all sorts of expenses. And sometimes the thought of this continuing to happen, and especially if you're still not on very good terms, with your ex, and they keep on making demands and so on, it can put you in that place, in the very, very dark place, where you don't see the light. So I'm just going to go back to this young man that contacted me just a couple of days ago. And so as I'm reflecting on, like, how can I counsel him, what can I say to him, I pray, so when I prayed, God gave me a picture, and the picture is that he was inside a prison cell, but the key to the prison cell was actually in his hand. And so I'm thinking, well, what is that all about? And I felt very clearly that because of his unwillingness to forgive the people that got him to that place, or the circumstances, and the people behind it, he now could not see any hope. And the key that will actually let him out of that prison cell is actually forgiveness. And so one of the things, and this is kind of a little bit of a long answer to your question, Sivam, but I think one of the things, let's face it, none of us is perfect. I'm not perfect. Ask my wife, okay? And she's way more perfect than I am, right? But we all are going to mess up in one area or the other. Your area of failure may not be the same as mine, but we all have it. And so one of the things that, no matter what your faith is, whether you're Christian, Hindu, Muslim, no faith, it doesn't matter. If there's one thing that you can learn to do and do well, is to forgive each other, and forgive each other as quickly as possible. Because when you relate to each other without forgiving them first, your responses will be harsh, You will get into adversarial mode. You look at each other as the enemy, and then the blows get harder and harder. Because we all have a fighting instinct, especially when our egos attacked. Wife says something that's a bit of a low blow. You're going to come back and hit her with another blow, verbal I'm talking about. And so now the war can escalate. So rather than do that, if you could just take a deep breath or a few breaths, or just go away, don't respond right away, and instead in your private space, just say, you know what, I choose to forgive you. That's really all you have to say. And in the beginning, you may not feel like you actually mean it, because it's hurting. And can I give you a secret? You may not actually feel like forgiving, but you must choose to forgive. And that's the key. And if we learn how to do this, guys, the wives can do what they want, but if we as guys, if we started doing that right from the get-go, and even when they initiate, like proceedings against you, or make it very difficult for you to see your children, all those kind of scenarios that unfortunately, divorced men keep on running into. You know what, if you can forgive even in this moment, you will not keep yourself locked up in that prison. The second thing that I will say to you, to prevent you from getting to that really low point, is, well, what actually gets you that place, is the sense of intense loneliness. You try to fight this battle on your own. And can I be honest with you? Sometimes something that I've learned over and over again in my 65 years of life, and over 35 years of serving as a pastor, and over 40 years of married life, is that there are some things that only you can do, but there are times when you have to put that ego aside, when you have to humble yourself and reach out to somebody who can help you. As a matter of fact, I'll even go one step further and say, right from the get go, surround yourself with a group of people, especially other men. I mean, they could be mentors you look up to, they could be a pastor, a priest, a good friend, or maybe even an uncle, or grandfather, or somebody in the family who can serve that role, or maybe a teacher or a professor. But surround yourself with people with whom you can be transparent and vulnerable, and they won't judge you, or they won't try to give you unsolicited advice. They'll just listen to you. And if you ask them, Mama Ji, can you, give me some wisdom? Then, and they give you something, then you listen. If you develop that support system right off the bat, then when life throws curveballs at you, such as, the news of your impending divorce, then you are not going to panic, because you have some people that you can lean on, who will support you, who will give you good counsel, and will see you through, walk through this lonely road with you. And that way you will never slip into that sense of hopelessness from which there is no way out, and then looks like suicide is the best option.
There are a couple of points that you brought, and then you did, give a lot of insight, I would say. That's what I was thinking, that the first thing, after we started this organization, I started to talk to a lot of people, um, hearing and listening a lot of nasty stories, unfortunate situations, things like that. But at the same time, that's only one thing, as you said, like forgiveness. Forgiving is the way to come out from the situation, to handle. But what I want to ask you is that, just going back to, of course, you did mention, but the first thing, as soon as they heard, okay, you know what, hey, let's break up, or let's, the divorce, I don't want to, live with you anymore, things like that. Or sometimes the other person, they already plan everything and they just inform them, right? But on at the same time, the men actually, on the other hand, they just want to get out, or they don't care, or they kind of like a shocking mode, right? So the trauma they are going through, nobody can imagine, right? So much beliefs, or so much trust is broken, and things like that. What was the one thing, or couple of things that, right off the bat, like what they can do, like, I would say, on the self care, what they can do, even sometimes they are going through some court cases or lawyer conversation or things like that, but what they can do in terms of taking care of them rather than thinking about the case.
Yeah. So, one of the things that you need to do is to, in some way, like get away from that situation, rather and that not just dwell on what is going on. Because if you keep on dwelling on that, like I've seen this happen, not just with men in this situation, but also with couples. If you keep on dwelling on what your spouse has done to you, that was cruel, harsh, like unacceptable, whatever the case may be. If you keep on dwelling on it, you know what, you will just keep on getting angrier and angrier and angrier, and then in that angry state, you will do things that you will regret. And so one of the things that I would highly recommend is really take some time and space for yourself. As a matter of fact, like one of the first habits we teach couples in our marriage mentorship is, we call it stillness. Make this a regular part of your life, that either you begin or end the day, or both, with even a short period, 15 to 30 minutes, somewhere in that range, of just being quiet. And so when something like this happens, the first thing you need to do is not to react. And unfortunately, most of us will react very quickly, and that's when we do things that we regret later. So instead, take some time just to yourself, and just if you're a person of faith, you turn to God at the time and say, God, give me strength, and just don't say anything more. Just sit and receive. And some of you, I know, are probably familiar with meditation. If that's something that you're comfortable doing, then get into meditation mode. So do something where you're not actively doing anything, and especially nothing immediately. And then in that quiet time, you will often be able to see things very clearly. You'll be able to see things from a perspective that is not just yours. And in that quiet time, you'll often even get some ideas, or get some names, or you might even see some faces of people to whom you should turn in that time, that can actually provide you with what you need. But if you don't do any of that, if you just kind of jump into like a knee jerk reaction, then that's when often we'll get into trouble, because we'll unwittingly escalate things, because we may then come out and say something. Or sometimes if you don't have enough control over yourself, you might do something in your anger that turns out to be physical, or some form of cruelty. And so that's one of the first things that I would suggest, is kind of like get yourself away from the heat of the battle. There's this military saying, and the saying is, retreat to advance. So pull back before you push forward. And that's why sometimes when there's a battle going on, there could be a lull in the action for a few days, when it looks like nothing is happening. Well, guess what? What's happening is, they have pulled back, and now they're planning the next strategy. And all of a sudden, a few days later, there will be an assault that happens, or a tactical attack that happens, that accomplishes a lot. And that's because they know that you need to retreat to advance. And I would suggest to guys, like, learn how to do that right off the bat. And you know what? Like, once again, I'm going to keep on coming back to forgiveness, because once you forgive somebody, and then you consider your response will be way different than if you are still responding or reacting out of the hurt. Because there's a saying in our world, and the saying is, people who are hurting will end up hurting others. And so if you act from a place of a hurt, you will unfortunately end up hurting the other person. And in this case, with when there's a marriage breakup and stuff involved, you'll end up hurting yourself. Because you might say or do something that could make the other party question your competence, as a father, especially with children involved, and it can be actually used against you. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. All I'm saying is, the way that you respond can often have consequences that you would not have anticipated. So do the right thing, which is like in our mentorship, we often say, call a timeout. And so this is calling a timeout for yourself, and just getting away from the fight.
Absolutely. Thank you for those tips. Actually, it's a more than tips, Jeeva. There are a couple of more things I really want to ask you, but the thing is that we want to leave it here, and then we want to bring you back some other times, and then we want to discuss more about the books and things like that. Because, of course, even though we say like what we stick in the first marriage or a marriage, but things happen, we cannot do anything. But how about moving to next life or next marriage or whatever the case is, things like that. How important is that to open up for men especially, and also having the circle of support system or network, not isolating themselves. Those are the things we need to take more and then get more from your experience. So, but I really want to thank you for showing up and also giving us a lot of information. But at the same time, that it's not enough. But in order to contact you and then get more, to have some kind of conversation or mentorship, or how they can reach you.
Well, the best place is to go to our website, which is simply thesams.ca. So www.thesams from Canada. So thesams.ca is probably the simplest place where you can go and find out about our mentorship. And there's also like a booking calendar on there where you can book a free consultation, or you can send us a message if you have some kind of a question to ask or about anything that I said. And by the way, for those of you guys, who are maybe from a culture like the Indian culture, Sloja and I, our marriage is an arranged marriage, and so we have a lot of empathy for people who are in arranged marriages, and ours. We had rough patches, but we worked through them, and it's like I'm really shocked how often I hear now about arranged marriages not working out, and then people very quickly moving to a breakup, whereas like when we grew up, we heard our parents say over and over again, the word divorce is not in our dictionary, and so you have to find a way to make it work. So all of that, I'm saying that if you're in that situation, like we have some empathy for you, so feel free to reach out. And I'll always have a conversation with anyone that contacts me, and whether you actually work with us or not doesn't matter. I'm willing to give you the best wisdom that I can, and then you, and maybe even point you to others who will be in a better position to help you, because we only work with married couples. And so if your spouse, if your wife is not really willing to cooperate with you, then I have other resources that I can send your way.
Absolutely. Not only that, but if your friend or somebody in your circle, especially a close relationship, let's say in your family, somebody is going through, either your son or your daughter or anybody, but they are looking for some kind of help, or you think, what, maybe this guy can give them something, maybe you can reach out to them. Is there a number or email address? I already posted your the book link and also the website link. Is there any?
Yeah, yeah. Our email address is the unbreakable marriage, all one word, at gmail.com. Yeah, so
Yes.
just the book title, The Unbreakable Marriage, at gmail.com. And we will respond to every email that we receive. Yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you for your time, and also, a lot of things you shared. Thank you for that. And then definitely we want to bring you back and then discuss more on the relationship and other areas. Thank you, Jeeva, for joining today. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Appreciate the opportunity. God bless. Bye bye.
Um, yes, friends, today we had a special guest, Jeeva Sam. He's the author of The Unbreakable Marriage, and he shared his life journey. So please reach out to him and have a conversation with him, either you personally have some issues, or somebody they are going through some kind of marriage situation though. So it's not a big deal. So you just call them and then have a conversation, see something that they can help you. All right, thanks a lot, everyone, for joining. And then Open Up is the regular podcast on a weekly basis, so on Sunday from 7 to 7:30. Um, for those of you guys, you want to join and share your life journey, please reach out to us at 226 and info at voiceomen360.org, or website www.voiceomen360.org, and all the social media, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere, Twitter even, you can go and find out. And also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you can. Subscribe to, and there are a number of episodes, videos on different topics, and then you can see it, you can watch it. Please, what you can do is, like, of course, you are listening, watching this episode, show podcast, but please share with other people too. So this way we can reach out more people, we can create this awareness. Thank you for joining.